Hello and welcome to AI and Cloud Summit, a virtual summit in collaboration with Dell Technologies and Tata Tele Business Services, focusing on the role of disruptive technologies like AI and cloud and the limitless possibilities for business. We're bringing together the industry stalwarts and technology leaders to uncover cloud capabilities that fuel operational efficiency, especially when combined with the power of AI and big data. The topic for today's session is cloud services, catalyzing change and inciting business innovation. Joining my esteemed panelists, Rama Devi Lanka, the Director of Emerging
Hi.
Technologies at Telangana, Mr. Anjani Kumar, the CIO at Strides Pharma, Mr. Mohit Arora, the Senior Director, Commercial Business at VMWare, and Mr. Aditya Kinra, the Vice President, SME Operations, Tata Tele Business Services, and I am Reema Tendulkar from CNBC TV 18. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you here with us, and thank you so much for joining in. Mohit, starting the discussion with you, we have seen enterprises embrace cloud in a very big way, and COVID has only accelerated this adoption. Can you share your thoughts on what we are seeing right now?
Thanks, Reema. So cloud definitely has been, something which is adopted very fast nowadays by all IT architects, and we've seen enterprises leveraging the power of cloud, especially in the digital transformation journey that they have embarked upon. And I would say COVID has been one of the accelerators for digital transformation. So having limited, access to data centers, limited access to deliveries of hardware being questioned, and things like that, people have started looking at cloud as a serious option for expanding their footprint. New workloads are being taken on cloud, and people are also moving towards new modern apps which work very well on cloud because of the scalability, the kind of agility they get. So cloud definitely is becoming more and more, important and a serious component of IT architecture as we go forward.
Absolutely, cloud has become the backbone of so many operations at companies. Mr. Anjani, pharmaceutical companies have been in the spotlight like never before in the last 1 to 2 years. Vaccine production, which used to take 10 to 12 years, has now been done in under 1 year, and technology is very central to every pharmaceutical company and the industry itself. Can you tell us why pharma companies need to adopt cloud right now, and what is it that we're currently seeing?
Thank you, Reema. If you ask me, the cloud technology has been the biggest constructive destruction of the technology industry. And anywhere, if you will have to look at, when you are talking of cloud, you'll have to look at what exactly it gives to the business in terms of business. So biggest thing, it gives you the agility. You talked about vaccine being coming to the market within 1 year, which used to take 8 to 12 years. One of the constraint has been getting the hardware, getting the data layer. Now with cloud coming in, within few hours, you could get how much data you want, how much compute power you want, how much hard drive you want. All of this is enabled using the cloud. The second part, which is the elasticity. So a lot of month-end processes, especially in pharma companies, it gets slower. And one of the reason is the computing capacity. Using cloud, you get the computing capacity. The third one, which I think Mohit talked about a little bit, he said when the COVID came, most of the pharma manufacturing company also faced the same problem which other manufacturing companies faced. And that is, how do you enable remote working? How do you enable working with lesser number of people? And when it comes to this, be it VDI, which is virtual desktop interface, or be it enabling the IoT enabled devices, making the lab digital and virtual, cloud enables us to do it much faster and much easier way. And that is where, if you look at pharma has been traditionally been laggard in the digital transformation, but last 2 to 3 years has been the golden era of the pharma and life sciences industry. Cloud adoption is one of the basic thing which has adopted that as a serious option. And that's where the whole cloud is necessary. 1, infra; 2, data; and 3, the tools which will make you agile.
Constructive disruptor. I like the term that you've coined for cloud and the impact that it's had. Rama Devi, ma'am, you've been pioneering the use of innovative technology to bring about change at the government level. So you have projects like Sagubanu, where you promote innovation in agriculture, horticulture. You have Arogyashri for people below the poverty line, and many of your projects and initiatives are housed on cloud. Has cloud become ubiquitous, and how would you compare where India stands vis-a-vis other countries, especially the developed countries like US as well as Europe?
Yeah, thank you, Reema, for having me on the panel. Well, if you look at various government departments, both at the center and in the states, many have started their digital transformation journey. Now for India, it becomes even more evident that cloud becomes an imperative. For government, especially to improve service delivery to citizens, and second, business, and the other one is to improve governance. But I would say that three broad drivers or the key drivers for adoption of cloud. One is we have a very young demographic population in India, who grew up digital, like young people like you. So how does the government deliver services to this young generation? That can, like, it has to be very easy to use, very quick, enhanced user experience. Even if the screen slows down for a microseconds, they become very impatient. So one is we have a young demographic population who grew up on digital. Second, as earlier somebody has said, the pandemic has actually accelerated the adoption of digital services, be it in healthcare, education. We are having online classes. Of course, we are now opening up the schools. Online payments have increased, and even in the government, we have been working from home. We have this electronic office, use of emails have increased. So this increase in usage of online services necessitates the use of cloud for government. So, and as the size and scale in the government is huge, especially when you're talking about these healthcare services or online classes. So you're talking about millions of users. So what's the best way to scale up? Obviously, it's the cloud. That is the second one, pandemic. Third, as you earlier mentioned that, I work on emerging technologies, very exciting projects that we are implementing in Telangana using various technologies like blockchain, AI/ML, drones, IoT, and so on. So these are all new age technologies. You can access variety of what you call these services ranging from compute, storage, IoT, AI, machine learning, and so on as a service. It's not, you don't have to really procure all the software licenses and keep it with you, because these are evolving technologies, and you don't have to have long term contracts and zero upfront costs and pay as you go pricing. This is actually the ease of access to these services with no upfront cost for us, for the government initially, helps us to experiment these new technologies, conduct faster proof of concepts, and so on. So these new technologies, the emerging technologies, necessitates the adoption of cloud. So, well, the conclusion is today cloud is a key fulcrum, that helps the governments to accelerate their digital transformation journey, which again ultimately enables to deliver services faster, enhancing ease of use at a very reasonable cost to a large number of citizens in a seamless way. Yeah.
All right, key fulcrum, cloud brings in agility, elasticity, scalability. I think the whole pricing model also you said helps in
Right.
bringing in the adoption. Aditya, would you like to share some of the value that you've generated at Tata Tele from cloud platforms and how it's helped you as well as your clients propel growth?
I see. For me, cloud is the 10th planet. We really want to, and ma'am was just talking about the projects which the government is taking. And my understanding is that the role of the government, any government, is to, for any technology, if you're talking about technology to reach even the last consumer wherever he is across the country. And if you really want to democratize technology, that's what cloud is for. It's the planet with endless possibilities. There are existing models. We talk about, Amazon, Flipkart, Tata Clicks. These are models which are not new. These are models which are already prevalent somewhere in the offline mode earlier. They've just been bought online, and they've got some vast possibilities to expand to. And then there are, the inventions which we're talking about, which is the Netflix, which is the Instagram, the Facebooks. These are the new inventions which are coming up on the cloud platforms. I come from a business background. A business is all about a consumer and a manufacturer. You may have the best of the product in the market, but if you don't have the consumer in front of you, the product has got no value. What cloud is bringing across on the table is these 7 million consumers. Right now, you need to have the product. The consumer is there. If you look at from any of our clients' angle, or the companies who are using it, they're able to derive that value by getting the access to the consumer. And the most important part, secondly, is the cost efficiency which cloud brings on the platform. Today, building an offline platform is expensive. Not just expensive; it's very, very expensive. Which is where cloud plays on a cost efficiency role. And third, every company itself is also a consumer. And when company buys and or goes for the cloud integration or the technology platforms, what it gets is revolutionizing the change from employee thinking behavior to. These are the three things which I personally believe that where customers and consumers are deriving advantage out of.
I track IT companies and the listed players very closely. And I remember Rajesh Gopinathan of CEO saying always that, this whole cloud is a three-phase or a three-horizon. You should look at it in three horizons. So the first horizon is pure migration, the adoption. But the second horizon is when customers start to leverage the capabilities of cloud around analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learnings to build customized solutions to grow and transform their business. And horizon 3 is when you can find a completely different new avenue, a new business avenue has opened up for you based on these cloud capabilities. At the moment, it appears that, we are at Horizon 1, where we've seen increased adoption of cloud services. Anjani, you indicated that, pharmaceutical sector was a laggard when it came to adoption, but now you are seeing increased adoption. Can you talk about this Horizon 2 when we are seeing companies like yours leverage the capabilities of cloud surrounding analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning to drive these customized solutions?
Sure. So, I talked about why cloud. One is, 2-3 reasons we talked about, and now you talked about three horizons. So first one is the infra part. The second part comes as a platform as a service, and the third part comes as in the platform itself, data as a service and tools. So a lot of business cases, like Aditya talked about, cost benefits of cloud. Actually, if you look at from the CIO's perspective, cloud is not always cheap. It depends on your use cases. If you take startups or some of our application, cloud is cheap, but in many cases we don't find it. But then there is a different advantage, and that is what even you are talking of second horizon. It gives you tools. It gives you the technology, which if you want to try on yourself without cloud, it will take years to do it. Whereas here you could do is in days, months. And to come to this, like when you do digitization, the next step comes, what do you do with that data? And that is where this second horizon comes into play. We call it, after all this digitization, data never sleeps. Okay, that's inspired by City Never Sleeps from the Citibank. And what it gives you, what do you do with the data? The whole data layer concept. If I try to do the data layer concept in my traditional data, in-premise or co-located data warehouses, it will take years. Today, I can go to AWS, I could go to Google, I could go to Microsoft. Data lake, data warehouse, within a year, most of the organization will be able to do at least 70 to 80% of the data lake, data warehouse. Create a data layer out of it. Even AI/ML, if I want to do AI/ML, putting a platform in-house, it will take years and years. But here, if I use Google TensorFlow or the Microsoft cognitive layers or the Amazon AI layers, any of those could take me few weeks. And in pharma, there is a lot of use. One, you have already seen the R&D, where you talked about the vaccine production. Second one is the clinical trial. How do you figure out who are the right patients who will be eligible for this, and using analytics, it can cut months. Then using AI, when you do the clinical trials, how do you compare results? Not only us, even the regulatory agency like FDA is already using AI ML to verify the submissions done by the pharmaceutical companies. In manufacturing, we have predictive analytics, we have golden batches where you could right away figure out whether you are going towards the threshold exceptions, and you could control your processes. In quality, what you could do is you could read all the root causes using NLPs, and what is not possible humanly, you could do through the systems. And sometimes we see what has been done by the human, the system adds much more value on top of it. So there are several use cases which is being done, and that's like the second layer. And most of these, which I talked about, is partially or fully enabled by the cloud. And the last one, but not the least, is the edge computing, which is the biggest buzzword I'm sure you would have heard. And with the edge computing and cloud coming together, how much you do on the edge devices and how much you, for what you go to cloud, you could do visual inspections of the tablet which you manufacture. Each of them could be inspected. Previously, it was done only through sampling, so only few of them do. Now you could do each of them. So there is an immense potential, an immense implementation which is going through in the second horizon you talked about.
Absolutely. The endless possibilities from technologies like edge computing, which bring down latency to such an extent, it's going to be fascinating the next few years. We've already taken such big strides. I don't even know in what leaps and bounds the next few years hold in terms of the development that take place. So we've, in a way, illustrated the benefits of cloud and why every company, enterprise, or even a government needs to look at it very, very closely. Now I want to, move on to the next topic, because organizations also find it challenging to, find the best suited cloud solutions for their business needs, and who would be the right service provider to guide them in their cloud transformation strategy. So here, Mohit, if you could share your thoughts, how does a company go around finding their cloud strategy? What is the difference between a hybrid cloud strategy? What exactly is a multi-cloud strategy? Which one is best suited for whom?
Very relevant question, Reema. So this cloud thing is not new, as I said earlier. If you look at companies who have been in the business of providing IT infrastructure, modernizing IT infrastructure, there has been a concept called private cloud. So we actually came up with tools and technology which could help our customers use their on-prem infrastructure like a cloud for a very long time. And that has been something which is very prevalent in all enterprise customers, may it be banking, telecom, or manufacturing. You would see most of the data centers are today modernized. We call a concept called software-defined data center, wherein whether compute, storage, network security, everything is defined through a software layer. You automate as much as you can, and you consume your own IT infrastructure like a cloud. So this has been going on for last 5-6 years. But now that we have options of moving to public cloud or so-called hyperscalers available, and multiple choices are also available there. People, or rather the enterprises, have to make a choice. And the choice has to be between which workload is suitable to run on-prem and which one should go on cloud. And that is the biggest strategy decision that the companies take. For example, say if you're running a core application like an ERP, or you are running say for a bank, it's a core banking application or core insurance applications, would you be willing to put that on cloud? Still, the answer you would get from 9 out of 10 customers would be that no, we would want to run it on cloud, on-prem, rather on your own data center or co-located data center. But when you look at peripheral applications, say like CRM, HCM, or say social media related applications, the first answer would be, why not try cloud first? So those applications people would want to put on cloud. Again, while it is easier said and done, that okay, you want to pick up application and take to cloud, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of strategy change, or it takes a lot of even technology change to move something straight from on-prem to cloud, or make it run in the cloud. The process is called redesigning, refactoring, or sometimes recoding the application. So companies like VMware, in fact, VMware is a pioneer in this space. we came up with this idea that, okay, we will partner with these hyperscalers to provide you a platform which is uniform across your on-prem and cloud, which essentially means that if you are running, say, an application today in your own premise, in your own data center, and you believe this application is a good workload for cloud, and you don't want to wait for the time it will take to refactor or redesign this application, and you want to just lift and shift it to the cloud, it is very much possible today. It is as good as moving a workload from one server to another server using vMotion kind of a thing, which we have been talking about for a long time. So picking up, copying a workload, pasting it, say, in AWS, taking it to Google, taking it to Oracle, taking it to any other hyperscaler, we have got that passage defined for our customers. The other way of looking at harnessing the power of application or power of cloud is like Anjani sir was mentioning that it's not just about running it in cloud, but making use of the tools that are available there, making use of so many other things that you can do like AI and so many other things, which is possible if your applications are modernized. So that is another concept which is happening, where people are coming up with new applications which are born in cloud, which are developed on the technologies like containers, Kubernetes, etc., and then they take it to the cloud. Or some customers we have seen, some enterprises we have seen who are looking at the concept of microservices from a legacy application, bring out certain services, build them as microservices, and run them on cloud. So there is no one answer for all types of workloads. Hybrid cloud is the first thing that people started doing some time back, from private cloud to one cloud. But then one cloud is not sufficient today. Earlier we used to say every enterprise would have at least one cloud, but today in the Western world you see at least three clouds. So most of the enterprises are working on three clouds. So now this is a question of moving workloads from one cloud to another cloud, which is basically multi-cloud, and managing it through a single pane of glass. And that's where we have some specific offerings which allow our customers not just to manage what they're running on prem, but also what they're running on multiple clouds with a single pane of glass, because that's most critical right now. And this is going to come up. People will have some applications which are SaaS based applications which are already running on cloud. People would push some applications to, say, Google Cloud. Other application may move to AWS Cloud. So there'll be heterogeneity around your platforms. But then again, the key would be, how do you manage security on this kind of platforms? How would you manage the uniformity? And above all, how would you also manage the cost of running these workloads on different clouds? So that is where technology plays a very important role. And there are new tools, new software products which are available, which help customers to plan these things, and then not just plan, but also run and manage these things across multiple clouds. So that's a story which we are talking to most of the customers, and we are seeing that a lot of demand for those tools which will be used to manage clouds now.
Actually, just one follow-up question, Mohit. Is there any downside of using, having a multi-cloud strategy? You spoke about security you have to ensure uniformity as well. How difficult is that to achieve? And also, if you could just throw in, some thoughts on the entire cost structure that this transformation to cloud, this cloud adoption entails.
So part one of your question, security. So security definitely is the most critical aspect of any IT architecture today, and we've all heard about so many security breaches that have happened in last 1 year. In fact, there is some 93% increase in the number of ransomware attacks which has happened in last 6 months. So we're all wary of that. We're all worried that our architecture should be foolproof, and we should have uniform security, policies which move along with workloads, whether they run on-prem or cloud A or cloud B. So there are ways of doing that. There are tools available today which help you take the security of a workload along with it to whichever cloud you want to run to. So that is a very important aspect while thinking about an architecture which will harness multiple clouds. And security is also changing very fast. So it should not be that it takes time to make those changes. It has to be at the speed at which the bad guys are moving. So you need to make changes. You need to patch your software. You need to be ready. Those things we need to do. And there is something like a lot latest technologies which are coming, which is next gen, and agentless kind of security, wherein you don't have too many security tools also, because if you have too many of them, then you're always worried about which one is ready, which one is giving false alarms, which one is giving the right alarm. So how do you consolidate your security posture is also very important. Now coming to cost part of it. So, like Madam had touched this point that it is easy to move to cloud because you don't have initial investment. But again, there is always, there's always a scale at which you'll go, and there'll be always unpredictability of cost in case you are not very clear how you're going to scale up, how agile infrastructure you'll be consuming, at what speed your consumption is going to be. So there are ways and means to monitor that. So we have a solution which we call as Cloud Health by VMware. So which essentially helps customers to identify that which workload is running on which cloud and what is the cost we are incurring. And it goes to the extent of giving suggestions in terms of if it is refactored, if it is moved to a different cloud, and how do you optimize costs of running your cloud infrastructure or multi-cloud infrastructure. So there are tools available today, and which large enterprises are leveraging to manage cost. But yes, managing cost is something which is a very important subject when it comes to running it on hybrid cloud or multi-cloud environments.
Just to get a more rounded output on thoughts on this particular topic, Aditya, if you would like to share what were your key considerations when you formulated the cloud strategy, how did you go about it?
We were just talking about the cost part of it, and it's quite debatable that what kind of efficiencies any organization looks at. But I quite agree with Mohit on the fact that verticalization plays a very, very important role when we talk about a strategy for cloud. It really depends whether you're from banking, whether you're from ITS, IT, what vertical are you looking at? Some companies or some verticals will obviously not let their database or let their whatever information they have go to the private or the public cloud so easily from a security concern point of view. But then there are other companies who may feel that a public and a private cloud combination is very necessary because it has got its own advantages there. Specifically, an advantage if I talk about which comes from not just the cost part of it, but also I think Anjani touched about is the time and speed part of it. That plays a very, very important role. What application you want to do it really fast, what application you feel is from the security threat is more. Second is today organizations, the way they are going, collaboration is playing a very, very important role. You need to collaborate to be more successful. Something you don't need to innovate, you just have there are people, companies who already done it. So cloud get that strategy of public and private also comes into the picture, how much you want to collaborate with which company and what is the strategy, and it helps you in specifically in the function of marketing. When you market your products, that's where the second advantage comes. And third is also, I think, one of the things which we sometimes miss across is whenever we talk about efficiencies, or at least we've looked at it in our clients, there are a lot of hidden cost efficiencies which come into picture. When a lot of internal applications of consumers and they move on to a public cloud, it's easier for the organization to take some larger decisions. One of the things which we've been looking at many of our clients moving on is from leaving their own offices and moving into a co-work space. That's only been possible because they've been able to shift their whole infra from internal private cloud to either hybrid model or to a public cloud aspect.
Fair enough. Interesting. Rama ma'am, since we are on the subject of cost, and some of the speakers already outlined their thoughts on that, the general perception would be that the government would maybe have outdated a technology environment. They would be a lot more cost conscious. So can you talk about your thoughts on how to approach cloud versus cost? Because even making that transformation is expensive. It is that initial investment that you have to put in.
Sure, Reema. Yeah. Well, that's a very important question, when we actually deal with cloud. While in the beginning I said that there is no initial cost, that it's like you start small and scale it up as you go. And moreover, in the government, for years we have been used to a particular model wherein it's a fixed kind of payments that we do to service providers. Like we estimate the entire cost of the infrastructure for the next 5 years of contract period, 5, 3, whatever it is, and then divide the entire amount into quarterly payments or something and pay it to the. That's the kind of, and you actually estimate the entire infrastructure requirements that are required over a period of 5 years. So that's the way we used to do in the in the conventional infrastructure. But now you don't need to do that guesstimate. We call it a guesstimate rather than an estimate, because earlier we used to guess how much infrastructure we required for the next 5. Despite that, you might have read in papers, when during these results, either MSET or 10th results, the servers crash. That's the kind of scenario sometimes, that we look at the government. So with cloud, uh, while we don't have to now guess estimate, you just start small with the minimum basic requirements that you're going to estimate, and just scale it up, and you're going to pay as you consume. Earlier, there's a study by, I think, McKinsey in association with Uptime. I think what they said, 50 to 60% of the infrastructure capacity with state data centers remains idle. They're not utilized. So there itself, you're seeing huge wastage of cost, while we are buying infrastructure that is unused. So with cloud, we can actually bring down that cost of infrastructure that we're actually putting in. That could be a major, advantage. And the other one, as you mentioned in the beginning, that we have actually moved our legacy system of Arogyasri and Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation to the cloud. It just happened a couple of months back. While it was a kind of a lift and shift, but initially we could save around 30 to 40% of the total cost, estimated cost, by optimizing resources, by designing the right sizing, and storage. Initially, they estimated some 40 terabytes of storage is required, but as we carried out, more like you call due diligence, we realized only 3 terabytes of data is actively being used. The rest of it can be moved to other storage devices. So in this way, cost optimization can be carried out. But for government, well, cost is a consideration, but more than the cost, we are looking at agility, operational agility. Like in government, suddenly we announce a new scheme, right, which has to be delivered to the citizens. Then for that, cloud really helps us in reducing the turnover time quickly. You have like you can either go for infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, or even for new technologies like machine learning, you can use software as a service. So in that case, you can just develop the application and host it on cloud. You don't need to buy infrastructure and all. So more than, as I said, while cost is definitely a consideration, the operational agility, the elasticity, the reliability, these are the things that the government is looking at cloud. And one important that I would like to share is security is a big concern for government when it comes to cloud. While all of us know that sometimes cloud is more secure than on-prem devices, but still that concern is still there with the government departments. We are trying to conduct workshops and bringing in awareness, saying that security is a shared responsibility, and cloud is in fact more secure than sometimes the on-prem infrastructure. Yeah, Reema.
So, ma'am, you said that, on your projects like Arogyasri, the Greater Hyderabad, the Municipal Corp, by using cloud, and it brought about efficient use of your capacity, because of which you could save about 30 to 40% of your storage costs. So on these particular projects, have you used any tools like, say, artificial intelligence or any other? And also, if you could illustrate the kind of, value-added benefits that you've managed to extract.
Well, Reema, for the Arogyasri and this GHMC, we call it, Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation, they are the legacy systems, that we have just moved to cloud. But as I said, in the emerging technologies division, we are in fact working on various projects in technologies like blockchain, machine learning. One interesting project that I'll share with you is the pension life cycle management project. You might be aware that a retired person will have to produce a certificate saying that he's alive, So what we did, and very senior citizens, they really have to go to government office or to a bank, to produce that certificate. So what we did, we actually developed a smartphone-based application wherein you just need to take a photograph, it's facial recognition technology we have used. It's again, we haven't, this is on cloud, we did not procure any software license. Of course, it's actually pay as you use. So we have used machine learning, deep learning technologies to identify if suppose Reema, you are applying for this pension. Of course, you are not retired yet, but to identify if Reema is a a real person who is actually availing the services. It actually compares your picture with the picture in the database and gives a certificate that yes, this particular person is alive and he or she can be, sanctioned pension. So yeah, this is one very interesting project where we are using machine learning and deep learning technology.
I hope this becomes because I know so many senior citizens going, at the start of every month to the bank, waiting in the long queues of the PSU banks to try and get that pension certificate. Going
Absolutely.
that hey, we are alive and we need that pension. So I hope this does become fairly ubiquitous. Since we are on the subject of these these tools plus cloud, which can have this transformational effect, let me move on to big data and cloud. If big data does mean that there is going to be a lot of data, and cloud in a way will help you scale it up, so you can run data intensive applications on cloud. So Mr. Kumar, for the pharmaceutical company, for your company, you all are generating a lot of data, as you pointed out. Have you been complementing big data with cloud?
So before I go to Reema, before I go to this question, I mean, first of all, I would want to give kudos to Rama, what she explained, taking care of millennials, senior citizens, using the technology. A government person, I must give her kudos and congratulations to her.
Thank you.
Right? The second part, I mean, before I again go to the question, we were talking about cost of the cloud. I would want to narrate a smaller story. So 5 years back, I was working as a CIO, and I wanted to bring 5 years back, cloud was very nascent. Wanted to do it for a backup. So I had discussion with CFO, and CFO said, look, we are in an industry which is a very capital intensive. So why do you want to bring cloud? It's very expensive. We had 11 TB of data to be backed up, and I showed him the cost. It was $110 at that time per month. I said, even if you buy hard disk, this will be much more expensive, correct? And this is 6 years back, the cost has gone down. So this is the, I mean, just an illustration on the cost part, correct? Now coming to the original question which you had is how do we use big data? Now, one of the biggest use for, if you ask me, one of the biggest use of cloud is how do you store the data? How do you create a data layer? How do you bring data democratization? And data democratization does not mean, somebody asked me in my organization jokingly, does data democratization mean that whatever data we want to keep, only we will keep it? The answer is not. The data democratization means if I am authorized to use the data, I should be able to use in the format which I want and in the way I want to visualize the data, correct? So we are, I mean, right from the R&D data, which is a huge data, R&D data, clinical trial data, which is a huge data, and you want this to be available anywhere, especially after COVID. One of the initiative, which is future of work in many organizations, one of the ask is, can I give a virtual working option? Until unless you have the right enablement through the cloud, it's very difficult that data can be seen anywhere. So that itself, it enables. Two, the data growth. I mean, if you look at any organization, last 2 years, 80% of the data has been generated in last 2 to 3 years. Great. Gartner talked about there will be 20 billion devices by 2020, and we laughed. Today we are at 21 point something billion devices, IoT devices, and they all are generating data every second. Where do you keep it? Historian databases, which is in manufacturing execution system. How do you store that data? That's a big data and unstructured data, correct? So all of these is being stored in the data warehouse. Again, you don't have one solution fits all. So you have to look at which kind of data, which cloud is one beneficial to from the availability perspective. Three, what are the tools, how you will use, right? So that's one from the R&D perspective. Manufacturing, the same goes, like you have manufacturing execution system, predictive analytics. How do you store that? quality. I mean, we are a very compliance-driven industry, right? And one of the reason why cloud was not there was a compliance. Now, compliance is being powered with the power of digital, and that is where you store all the data, right? The last part, which many of you would have read, that supply chain is a challenge. API, pharma companies are not getting API, remdesivir, all of this use. So we call it, how do you bring resiliency in the supply chain? So you use external data, you use internal data, and make sure that you bring resiliency to the supply chain. You create a digital control tower using the forecast, using the supply, and what you are consuming on the manufacturing floor, what your customer is needed when. And especially during the COVID time, it was first time we realized that it is even more important than we think. And that's where we use a lot of data analytics and power of data layer, data democratization right out on the cloud.
Fascinating, interesting. So that's about perhaps big data. Aditya, if you would like to add anything on it, and I also then later wanted to get your thoughts in on this personalization aspect. But anything that you wanted to add on big data and cloud?
I think my counterparts have explained it very well, and I'm actually put it rightly that the way we are democratizing technology, and we always talk about democratizing technology for businesses to do big, right? And I think government is totally capitalizing on it, and it's nice to hear that what the government is doing and trying to reach the last consumer. It's only when we are able to make technology, capitalize on technology and make every consumer and every citizen benefited out of it, is that we'll be successful as a country, right? And I think we are on the right path. Just that in doing so, looking at, we today talked about the efficiency part of it. We've talked about how consumers part of it. I think initially Anjani talked or Mohit talked about, that the 3 steps have to be now adapted, and most of the organizations are on the step 1. It's not just the pharma companies. I think most of the organizations today are on step 1. It's time that everybody recognizes that it's now time to move to step 2, right? And then to the last step, because it's a cultural change which all of us have to bring into, right? The cultural change, because of lack of technology, is more like a clockwork culture, where the central person generally, puts up what to do, and the rest of the organization or rest of the business will follow it. I think from that clockwork culture, the cloud or big data is helping us to move to a more of a networking and arena culture. And I think if we are able to capitalize on that networking and arena culture, we are there.
Well, it's culture as well as we need to close the technology skill gap as well going ahead. But Aditya, automation was yesterday's story. Today's and tomorrow's story is going to be about personalization. You spoke about technology reaching the last consumer. Can you talk about enterprises developing business models which use cloud capabilities to create hyper-targeted customer offerings?
Yeah, so see, if you look at, every enterprise today, earlier we used to differentiate enterprise more from a vertical angle, and that's what technology adoption is today, dependent on which vertical. We talked about, I think Anjani and we talked about what vertical you are into. That's how the adoption is coming. But now it's not about anymore just about the verticalization part of it. It's about the business model you want to adopt, and adapting that business model, you're moving to the next level. Government is the right example. We were looking at one part of the shop doing it in a particular way. Now that particular example sets up that you can do the same thing in 5 or 6 different ways, and that's what big data is all about. If it look at, I just want to give an example there. I was just sitting in one of the co-works about a week back, and the place where I was sitting, there were 3 gentlemen and a lady sitting just next to me and talking about a large brand in making. And I just happened to talk to them, what are you guys doing? And they responded back that they've come up and they built up an online platform, and they are trying to compete with the biggest brands in the world. 3 people just sitting on right side to me were talking about some technological solutions, SaaS-based platforms they have developed. So big data and technology is not just about the larger companies taking it to the next level. It's also about the smaller entrepreneurs coming up and building it up.
Okay, Mohit, coming to the close of this discussion, as we've all been saying, the cloud adoption isn't the goal here. It's not the real price. The real objective is how you use cloud to the fullest extent in supporting digital innovations. Could you share your final thoughts on this particular topic?
Sure. See, cloud or no cloud, basically, the decision is, as I said, depending on suitability of the workload. So again, enterprises are in different phases of their journey towards this transformation. Uh, there are SaaS-based applications. The use of cloud could be for platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. There's so many flavors of cloud also available today. And again, maturity of the customers' applications, which will run, which can run on cloud as is, which need to be rewritten or which need to be resized, refactored. So there are various aspects what one has to look at from the enterprise perspective before deciding that what would be the right platform to run their applications. But the key is that today the options, the variety of things that you can do with cloud is amazing. And like whether it is to do with the tools that are available, the agility, the scalability, and obviously we spoke about various use cases. One of the best use case maybe governments are now looking at is DR as a service. So today you have a setup which you're running in your cloud, in your on-prem premise, on your own data center. Tomorrow, when you are thinking of setting up a DR site, do I really need to do the same 9 yards of evaluation and then putting up the infrastructure, data center, everything again, or can I just make my DR available on a cloud? So that's a very good use case. So many things you can do, so many possibilities that you have with cloud. The only thing is we need to have a clear strategy as to where and how we have to move towards the cloud.
Okay, and last question. Ladies must have the last word. So, Rama, this one is for you. To utilize the benefits of cloud computing, the Government of India has embarked on the ambitious GI Cloud initiative, Meghraj. How far this initiative, according to you, is beneficial for the government at large and businesses in particular?
Yeah, Reema, I'm glad that you have asked this question because I have been part of this Meghraj initiative which was initiated in the year 2014, I think. So I actually was involved in developing the procurement guidelines, cloud procurement guidelines, and designed master service agreement. It's called SLA, which today GEM, Government e-Marketplace has adopted the same. So I'm really happy to share that. Well, this Meghraj initiative is a very visionary initiative at that point of time because as I said, it has been initiated in 2014 when governments had no clue about cloud. But this initiative kind of set the momentum for cloud adoption of cloud. No department started looking at cloud and how now today there are many government state governments. In fact, because of Meghraj, two states initially first Maharashtra has come out with a government order mandating all the departments to go for cloud, and we in Telangana last year we have come out with a government order saying that all the government departments should move to cloud. Of course, not just like we also indicated certain scenarios where they should move to cloud, like you just can't move to cloud on day one, right? So when your contract is expiring, when your infrastructure needs refurbishment or becoming obsolete, or you need some capacity enhancement and so on. So that's the government order that we have come out with. But one key differentiator is that we have actually come out with a cloud strategy, cloud adoption framework for the government. So how do they need to actually rethink on budgeting? As I said, how do you budget, because it's a whole lot of different way of procurement of cloud, as it's pay as you go and so on, right? And how do you evaluate, as someone was saying, how if you need to buy a cloud service, it's a service now, it's no longer infrastructure. So how do you evaluate the financials of procurement of cloud as a service? So we have put all together in this framework document, and really departments are now actually at least looking at cloud and trying to adopt cloud. And as I said earlier, two major departments actually their workloads have been moved to cloud, and we have learned a lot in those in migrations, which we are actually preparing case studies so that we can actually use it for other departments. And lastly, we have set up a center of excellence in cloud in partnership with Hyderabad Software Exporters Association, HISIA. So this COE will work with all the stakeholders in the clouds, ecosystem, like the cloud service providers, managed service providers, startups, governments, and so on. So which will actually help in accelerating the adoption of cloud both by the industry and the government, and also help startups to come out with innovative tools for these cloud services. So yeah, Reema, these are the various initiatives that we have undertaken.
Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for joining us on this very insightful discussion. Cloud computing does look like a win-win. Services are getting faster, cheaper because it's pay-as-you-go model. Plus, it brings in more resilience, agility, scalability, as well as efficiency. And truly, today, business, both enterprise side as well as government and technology, has become inseparable right now. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Reema.
Thank you, Reema.